Hey guys, this is Chris, and just wanted to give you a little public message here for the Hubsan Zinos and some changes, and just to keep you informed because these are important for certain reasons. Like any manufacturer, Hubsan will make changes. They don't have to notify us. They don't have to tell the public about them, but you know, just like early on, the first Zinos came with a round camera lens on them. The front of it was round, and then pretty quickly on they went to, it's not really fully square, but kind of a square lens versus that round. So that was something very obvious that people picked up on, and there's been another change to the camera since then that I don't think very many people are very aware of at all. I started mentioning it as I've been repairing Zinos, because I learned the hard way. I ordered the wrong cable for one quad. There's a different camera, and it's, again, not anything that has to do with quality, just like the original where they went from round to square. It really didn't affect any quality or anything like that. And the new camera that they have now, it's just a connection with the ribbon cable, because they've used a different board inside each servo motor, your ESC or board, if you will. So you can plug in either cable to it, but it's not going to work the same for you. So if you have a Hubsan Zino and you need a ribbon cable for your gimbal, just so you don't learn the hard way like I did, I work on a lot of these, and your biggest problem is that cable. I think you can see down there on the floor I have a couple Zinos. I have 3 on my workbench. I have them coming everywhere. I've got one over here on the floor. So a lot of Zinos I've been working on, and it's a lot of these are, a majority are this ribbon cable. So if you order that ribbon cable, what you need to do, and the ribbon cable is the one that snaps in the back, the Hubsan says is a reset. It's not a reset button at all. Please know that. It's a plug, and you have to be extremely careful when pressing on that plug to make sure it's connected. That's all you're doing. You're pressing on it to make sure it's connected. If your gimbal starts flopping around on you, usually it's the one in the back where it's just not fully seated, and you got to pop it on right, put the cover back on, you're good to go. Secure it with some sort of a silicone type glue or something, but you don't want to put much on there or that cover will not go on well. But anyhow, if you need to order that, all you need to do is have your QR code, because your Zino serial number is going to tell you which one you have. So if you order that cable, the website where you order it should ask you, do you have a Zino-Y or a Zino? So all you do is take your phone, you scan that QR code, and then it's going to come up and tell you, oh, you have a Zino. So you need to order that ribbon cable, just order it for the Zino. If you have the Zino-Y, it's going to come up as Zino, I think, -Y, and your serial number XXXX whatever will follow that. So therefore you'll need to get the cable, the ribbon cable that says for Zino-Y, and then that way you don't have any problems when you swap that part out with it being compatible with your camera. If you mix the two up, your connection's not going to be the same. It will attach, but it's not going to be the same, and you will continue to have problems, and then you'll cause yourself some headaches trying to figure out what the heck's going on here. So they are quad specific. So that's a change that they made with the camera on it, and have not told anybody. But fortunately, where you're buying your parts from, they at least know, on AliExpress, they at least know that there's a Zino and a Zino-Y, and they've made it clear that you need, which one you need. So in ordering these parts, that's the only thing you got to look out for. The next thing they went and did on us is they've gone and changed the firmware. So if you've got a new Zino coming, or you've just received your Zino, chances are you have this new firmware. And this is something where I do think that the manufacturer should let you know, hey, we have a new firmware, because for all you know, there could be a hardware change within the quad that requires this firmware. And if you get this quad and it's acting funny and you want to try and update the firmware with what's on their website, which isn't what came with your quad, if you have this different firmware and your hardware is changed, you could possibly brick your Zino. So for all we know, with this new firmware, for all we know, there could be a hardware change that requires this firmware. We do know, from, if you look at one of my other videos, one of my recent videos, there is now a new board coming in these Zinos, and it doesn't require this new firmware, but that just shows they make hardware changes and don't tell you. So the reason I'm stressing this about the firmware is, you know, it's been talked about in my Facebook group, and one member made the comment about updating his, or asking should he update it, and I made it real clear, don't do that, leave it alone, because you never know. There might be something different with the Zino, especially with them coming out with the Zino Pro. They might be marrying the same parts for certain things, so for all we know, we could have a third different new board. So if you get this with the new firmware, leave it alone. Don't do a thing. Test your Zino. It flies okay, leave it alone. If you have a problem, contact Hubsan. Hopefully their support will respond, but do not update the firmware until you know or see it on their website that it's for all Zinos. So your firmware is now, we were 11XX, now we're 12XX. So this new firmware version that's popping up is 12.01. And instead of the gimbal ending in 2.2, now it's 2.3. So you've got a new gimbal firmware showing up and a new FC showing up, and my advice is just leave them alone. Do not update your firmware to what's on their website until you know what you have. Plus, if it works fine, there's no reason to do any updates. I'm normally one that says, hey, do the update after you've done your homework and know that it's okay. But with Zino, even if it's a good firmware, like, you know, when they came out with the speed changes and all that, I hate to recommend anybody really do updates, because the process for some, if they're not used to this type of thing, can be very hard, and they can end up really messing up their quad. I've had some come to me that's all they needed. They were broken, the person tried to do an update, couldn't connect to Wi-Fi or what have it, and all it needed was the firmware installed properly. So that's why I just say, you know, also leave it alone, because the process of doing their firmware upgrades is ridiculous. So that's it. I just wanted to kind of bring this to your attention, just so, you know, if you have a new Zino and it's got the different firmware, you don't make the mistake of upgrading the firmware. And just so you know also that if you need to order the ribbon cables for your cameras and gimbal, they do require you to check your serial number and see if you have a Zino or Zino-Y. Looking at the camera itself, I don't really see any difference. One person pointed out, and neither one of these are a Zino-Y, so I can't tell you. But Josh from Parks and Tech, he pointed out that the lens seemed like it was a little different on his, which is a Zino-Y versus the Zino. So the lens, I think, was recessed more than what's on the regular Zino, but I don't have one in front of me to confirm that and say that's definitely what the change is. But I do know the definite change is the board itself, because it's a slightly different plug, and one won't work with the other, apparently. So when I had the one and it required the Zino-Y, I never even looked at the lens, so I've already sent that one back to the customer, and I can't confirm that is the difference. But obviously there is something different, and it is the camera gimbal combination probably. So that's it. Just wanted to bring that out to your attention, and just be smart when you buy this quad, and join Facebook groups. Put a link to mine in the bottom of this video in the description, and just stay on top of the information, because it's all the great members in these groups that bring the information. It's not coming from Hubsan themselves. So that's just my little public announcement to make sure you're aware of what you got and what to do and what not to do, and hopefully it helps you. So thank you everybody for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Newcomers, new Hubsan Zino owners, hit that subscribe button and bell for more content, and as always, thumbs up on your way out. Take care.